Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Lab. My name is Zan Zerbel, and for anyone who's new to the lab, this is where we have conversations with a wide range of adventurous individuals to educate, stoke, and inspire. In today's episode, Marshall Yanzik and I speak with Jason Hardrath, Max King, and Jason Antin about infinity loops, the recent uprise in FKTs, as well as ultra running and so much more. So with that, on to the show.
With that, I'm going to bring up our first panelist, Max. I'm going to have you join us here. So again, I'm not going to do you justice. You've had just in the short time I've gotten to know you, you are a fascinating, inspiring human being, an athlete, a former engineer. You've done a ton of stuff. I'm not going to be able to introduce you with any credibility. So tell us a little bit about how you've gotten to where you're at today as a professional runner. What got you here?
I don't know. You might probably better do a better job than I could. Honestly, yeah. Well, I'm just a professional runner for Solomon now. Like you said, previous life I was an engineer. Retired from that about 10 years ago, and then ever since then have been kind of creating a world for myself that revolves around running, basically. So working on running stores. Doing racing, working with running camps, race directing races, all sorts of different stuff like that. And that's kind of where I'm at now, is just kind of hold a lot of hats, or I wear a lot of hats, I guess you could say, and race direct the Bend Marathon, direct the Max King trail running camps, both youth and adults, and then run professionally for Solomon. And race all over the world and get to do a lot of really cool adventures when there's no races going on, like right now. So
what's been professional running? You make, it's kind of fun to chat with you before this, just a little about the diversity of where all you live in the running space. So what's been your favorite race that you've been a part of in the before COVID?
Well, that's a lot of races before COVID. I don't, like everybody, like I'll get that question a lot, I guess, is like, what's your favorite race? But I don't have a favorite race, because each one is so individual, so unique, that, a race in some beautiful area that goes terribly wrong, can be, a great experience for me. The same as one that, it's not so scenic, but it's in a city on a road where I'm not really paying attention to the scenery, but the race goes really well. So I have a lot of those varied races and stuff. And I think, what you refer to is like, what's my favorite race? So it's like, my favorite race is probably that local race that, where I get together with a lot of my friends and stuff in the local running community, and we, have a race, hash it out, and then we sit down for a beer and a hot dog afterwards, or something like that. It's like, those experiences for me are where or the things that I really enjoy doing in the running space and the running races and stuff. It's like the big races and stuff, they're a ton of fun. And even like, London Marathon, New York City Marathon, big trail races like Comrades, or Mount Blanc Marathon. It's like, those are really, really enjoyable, really, really fun. But it's a different experience having that much hype around you and stuff like that. And I just enjoy those really small local community races. So.
And the last one before I jump to our next panelist, just as a quick intro, but I wanted to touch on, I think is pretty neat with in regard to when you're not running professionally, your coaching and mentoring side, and you're the Max King camps. Touch a little bit more on those, and kind of what inspired you to start coaching, mentoring, and bringing along youth and adults in this space.
Yeah, so I've coached youth probably for the last 12 or 15 years or so, just in cross country and running and stuff. And then what I really wanted to do, though, was kind of bring together my two passions of trail running and like kind of teaching people how to trail run, and the youth side of things, along with the adult too, but the youth in particular. And so I started the trail running camps that I've been doing for about 5 years now. And they're a ton of fun for me. I really love doing them, because it's not just like getting a bunch of kids together to run trails outdoors, but we're actually actively teaching them how to go out there and replicate that experience for themselves. And, one of the things that I didn't want to do was just like take a bunch of kids, put them in the outdoors, and then have them not be able to go back and replicate that and do it again. And so one of our big things is actually learning when you're at camp, like how to do that, how to do it safely, talking about wilderness safety and first aid, talking about map and compass navigation, talking about stewardship, all of that stuff that a lot of times gets glossed over when you're talking about like, oh, how to trail run. It's like put one foot in front of the other. It's like there's a lot more involved in trail running than people really than they think there is. And so that was one thing that we were trying to do with that. So
that's great. No, for those tuning in, so it's maxkingtrc.com is the best way to find it?
Yep.
Okay.
That's exactly it. maxkingtrc.com.
Great. Well, let's bring up, so Jason Hardrath, where you at?
Well, today I'm in Klamath Falls because school started back up.
It's not a common place to find you right now. I mean, you've spent the summer out just wandering, chasing big time mountain dreams. Tell us a little bit about how you've gotten to this place that you're in now.
Well, I mean, I guess it kind of started way back. I mean, I kind of engineered my life around this love for getting out and moving my own body. And so choosing to be a physical education teacher was a natural choice because one, I got to teach what I loved. And two, I got to go live it during my summers and my breaks. And so, yeah, that's why like for summers I take off and I go live out of a van or out of my car and chase mountain objectives. It's just, what I love doing. So I get out and I do it.
What's been
more energy to come back to my students?
Yeah. What's been your most epic summer adventure to date?
Oh boy. That's a
top of the head. Top of the head. You can't scroll through them. What's the one that just stands out as the big one?
You know, actually, probably it's the one I just failed at. I went and gave Norman's 13 a crack and had two massive gear failures, a watch failure, and my spot tracker failed. So lost any substantiation for the effort and went ahead and rattled out 6 of the peaks and then decided to go ahead and cruise it on out of Taboose Pass. So it was a wonderful experience. And like, you know what, change the perspective. It's like, okay, I'm not going to take home an FKT today. Just go out and enjoy the mountains, rehearse the route again, and I'll come back next year because this was my last big window for a long effort like that. So I'd say I enjoyed that the most just because of all of the emotional ups and downs that came with an effort not coming together.
Yeah. And I got to say, like, something just over these last couple weeks of getting to know you better, it's been really inspiring to follow kind of your story and these different adventures. And I think a big one for you is just like this teacher giving back to youth and coaching and teaching and bringing along youth there, and then combining that with your own personal endeavors and kind of leading your personal endeavors by example in many ways. How do you like how does that translate in the classroom for you?
I mean, there's obviously like the explicit ways where I talk about things they can go do and different adventures they can have and things they can be excited about and like have these stories of empowerment that they can go do these things. I'm just some kid from some small town. So if I can do it, they can do it. And you know, that's true regardless of whether they love art or chess or mountains like I do or hunting. But then, yeah, I think some of it is sort of just the implicit how stoked I get about all the little things I teach because I am out feeling that it's genuinely true for myself. You know, we've all had that experience with a PE teacher who's like sitting on the golf cart with a Slurpee on their gut telling us to run faster. And I've promised myself that it's like, if I lose my passion for actually doing it myself, I'll find a different career because I don't know, I just don't want to be that character in someone's life.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Yeah. So inevitably, I hope there's a parent or a kid joining us tonight who's looking for some inspiration. You know, what would you tell them to coming from this? You know, like how would you inspire them a little bit?
I would say something I say to my own students, that you're always preparing for opportunities you can't see yet. I was out running and training and chasing different goals and got into building mountain skill sets well before I ever discovered what FKTs were. And so when it came along that I discovered what FKTs were, it was like, oh, this is a natural fit. I already have the skill sets and the endurance built up necessary to go chase these big things. And I have a body that's, been trained for 16 years in ultra endurance. So it can put up with a lot of abuse without injury. So it was I was able to just naturally step into it without missing a beat. And that comes from preparation. And so you're often preparing for things you can't see yet. And if you bother to do the preparation, when the day comes that the opportunity is knocking, you can go, yeah, come on in, I'm ready. And if you're not, it'll pass you by. So yeah, whatever you feel like you want more of in your life, start preparing now.
Yeah, I love that. I personally just wrote that down, and it's the second time I've gotten the opportunity to hear you say it. And like, I just feel like just following your story and kind of the missions you've been on, like, I mean, I'm sure that failed mission had a little illusion in that, in some accounts of ways too, like preparing you for that. So, well, I appreciate it, Jason. We'll pull on the other Jason. Jason Antin, you there?
Happy Tuesday, everybody.
Oh, there he is.
Great to chat with you all. How's life, Marshall?
Oh, it's brilliant up here. We lost a smoke in Portland. So I hope, how's everything in Golden? Are you in Golden right now?
Yeah, it's been nuking snow since 10 a.m., but nothing's really accumulating out here in Golden, Colorado.
That's great. You're fortunate. I mean, for the sake of everybody tuning in tonight, I think it's blessings to those and hopes that these fires can get under control around all over the country. It's not good for any of us. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You're based there in Golden. We got Max and Hardrath here in Oregon, but you're coming to us from Golden. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Sure thing, Marshall, and everyone out there. I'll try not to bore you all to tears. But I'm Jason Antin. I live now in Golden, Colorado with my family, my wife Jenny and two little girls. I've got a 4-year-old and a 5-month-old. I grew up in Massachusetts, so born and raised there, and really got into the outdoor space. I think it really stems back to team sports, and so and community, and using my body, much like Jason and Max has already said. So I think back to kind of a pivotal moment for me in human-powered movement, and that was my very last collegiate football game. And sitting on the locker room floor, like about to take off my pads for the first time, looking around me and realizing I was losing this community that I just surrounded myself with, and we sweated and worked really hard every single day from pre-high school all the way through college. And now I had this massive void in my life of like, how do I use my body? How do I connect with a community that I can share in that positive suffering with? And I went right to the mountains. I didn't really have a huge connection to the climbing community or the running community at that time. But I just started hiking Mount Monadnock, 45 minutes from my home. And then I started running Mount Monadnock. And then I started inviting friends to go out Mount Monadnock. And then things kind of spiraled from there. And so finding other folks to play in the mountains with. At the time I was working in the corporate world. So my focus was actually security and law enforcement. So risk management at a corporate level or a pretty serious level. And I started volunteering for a local organization called Waypoint Adventure that helps adaptive adults get outside and play. And that gave me a taste for a life in the outdoor industry. So that was 10 years ago. I moved to Colorado with my now wife, and I completely switched careers. I now wear I wear a variety of hats in the outdoor industry. So I coach athletes as a strength conditioning coach at the Alpine Training Center here in Boulder. So it's a gym that caters to mountain athletes, runners, climbers, skiers, cyclists. I work most of my time as a guide now for the Colorado Mountain School. And I also try to inspire folks through storytelling. So I've been afforded the opportunity to work with various brands to work on different projects. From that has spawned the Beat Monday project. So it's all about how do you squeeze the most out of your 64-hour weekend. And so that really sums it up. But for me, it really comes back to those early feelings of like, what's powerful to me, and that is community and challenging yourself. And then I found the outdoors as a great outlet to that. And I think now going forward, it's all about, I'm looking for ways to help inspire other people through my own experiences, but I want to reciprocate that. And I want to feed off what other people are doing as well. So not to bore you to tears, but that's kind of how we got to where we are today.
No, it's brilliant. I think I think there's a lot of people out there that can relate or aspire to kind of be able to make it. I think for all three of you guys, like it's it's really fun to hear the different paths and the stories that get you where you're at. And I think for all of us here, I think it would be that you got to take that leap of faith at some point. Hopefully you got a rope on you and some protection to keep you from falling too far. And in Hardrath's case, not so often, doesn't have any of those, but still does it. But so Jason, as far as you've kind of blended this entrepreneurial spirit into the outdoors, and I think one of those biggest most recent is Beat Monday. Talk to us a little bit more. You mentioned it briefly, a little bit more about what Beat Monday is and what your kind of goal and inspiration behind that outside TV series.
Yeah, and I've met so many people that are kind of kindred spirits when it comes to redefining what it means to be a weekend warrior. But I remember the conversation. It was 2013 or 2014. I was working for a startup in Denver called GoSociety at the time, and that was it was a tech startup that was a social network for outdoor folks. And I was on the phone with my buddy Mike Chambers, and Mike Chambers and I were chatting, and he at the time was working for another startup in Boston, and we were kind of complaining about just not having enough time to do all these things we'd like to do. And so we kind of just put a pause on the conversation, pulled up a spreadsheet, and started listing off all the things we think we could actually pull off, kind of bucket list adventures we think we could squeeze into a true weekend. A true weekend being you punch the clock at Friday afternoon at 5 and you're back in the office at Monday morning first thing. And we started this spreadsheet. The first thing was like, hey, neither of us had actually climbed Mount Rainier. And so we went and did it. Mike flew from Boston. I flew from Denver. We climbed and skied Mount Rainier. We realized, wow, you can really do a whole lot in the 64-hour window. Things snowballed a little bit. We had a few great opportunities to write about it and had a few little features here and there. A production company, Delve Media out of Bend, Oregon, reached out and said, hey, this is a cool concept. Let's try to bring it to network. And so fast forward a few years now, we have 3 full-length episodes that are on Outside TV. We have 5 other shorts, and we're looking to film 6 more starting this fall.
Nice. So it's what would you, for a viewer like myself, not even close to the technical or physical capabilities of you, what would you hope that I'd get out of it?
It's all about just realizing that you can set goals for yourself, and 64 hours is a whole lot of time. And whether it's something really obscure that may not be completely attainable to some, translate that to something that really is going to be something that you could do, or maybe even a little bit of a stretch. So the idea is just make the most out of your weekend, surround yourself with other enthusiastic people, and go do it.
Nice. I love it. Well, thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure to all 3 of you guys. Thank you. I appreciate the quick intros. You guys, fabulous, inspiring people. It's amazing athletes, and got many different unique experiences that hopefully will provide some great continued perspective for those tuning in tonight. So, with that, I want to pull down the we're going to pull down the deck, and we're going to jump into some discussion topics. And I'm going to bring Zan. Zan, where you at? Bring Zan on to join
right
me
here.
as he's going to help me provide some good commentary and questioning as well too. And I see the chat box starting to blow up already. So guys, please feel free to respond directly, and those tuning in, ping any of these guys if you have any specific questions that we don't get to touch on. Feel free to do that. But this first one, we're going to touch on it, and then we'll get into the running stuff. But I think it's an important one that in just current states of the outdoor industry and our country is just the topic of diversity and finding access for all to the outdoors and gaining that access. And I think personally, I think for me, it's something. I'm a doer, and it's something. What can I do every day to help that? Do you guys have any things that you guys would recommend or refer to those tuning in to continue to help those who may not have access to the outdoors and improve the diversity that is in the outdoor community? Anything that you guys would recommend or speak to on your behalf on that? I'll start with Max with his trail running camp.
All right. No, so I mean, obviously, I've got a lot to learn. I don't deal with it very much in my spaces that I'm in, unfortunately. So one thing we tried to do, or we did a few years ago, 2 years ago actually, is we put together a camp of, kind of some kids from, different backgrounds and stuff and brought them together. And we did a Max King trail running camp with them. And it was actually really successful. It was really cool. We had kids from the inner city in San Jose. We had some from a Native American reservation outside of Oregon. We had some kids from poverty from around Central Oregon area. And then a few other areas as well. And it was really, really cool. And I think one of the big things that came out of that, for me at least, was that, it was one of our camps. We set it up to kind of teach trail running. And what came out of it though was that I feel like I got a lot more out of it and learned a lot more from those kids than they ever could have from me, just because of where we were all coming from. I think it was a really good mix of kids. We all got along. It was awesome to see kids from, inner city San Jose who just don't have that opportunity to get outside and experience the outdoors. And we were taking them, on sunset hikes and putting them through a 23-mile long run and all sorts of stuff, pushing their limits, like teaching them about trail running and map and compass navigation. But really, like, that stuff doesn't really matter, because like what I got out of it was, a lot more than what I was able to give to them. And that was really cool to see that. And I want to continue doing that. It's something that I'm really passionate about, and I've been trying to kind of figure out how to do that. This summer, me and another guy from Ben, Mario Mendoza, and Renee Mativier were supposed to put on a camp that was specifically centered around diversity and actually bringing kids together from different walks of life. So some from Ben, some from Madras, some from the Native American reservation, all these different areas of Central Oregon, and putting them all together and learning from them and having them learn from each other. And this was in June, about the time everything was kind of blowing up. And so we really wanted to have that. Unfortunately, with COVID, we couldn't pull it off with safety protocols and all of that. It lost a lot of what it was going to mean and the value that it was going to have. And so we put it off till next year. We're definitely doing it next year. I think it's going to be really, really valuable for them, for us, for everybody involved. And I really want to pull this off. And I would really love to actually expand that and keep, increasing that a little bit more and stuff. And I was actually listening to a podcast a few weeks ago, and the woman that is the leader from Outdoor Afro, I think it was on that podcast, and listening to her. And, one thing that she said really struck me, and it was basically, she said, look, you can have a camp for minority kids and diversity and stuff like that, but it doesn't do them any good. And I'm like, that kind of hurt, it's like, well, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. And she kind of went on to say, you can bring them out, you can give them an outdoor experience, and they go home and then they can't do that again. And I'm like, yeah, actually, you've got a point there. That's true. And that's exactly what I'm trying to avoid with doing my camps and all of the learning opportunities. I want these kids, to be able to actually replicate what they're doing, to spread, what they're doing in the outdoors to the rest of their family, and be able to take their family and do it safely and figure out how to approach the outdoors in a safe space, and to do it so that it's manageable for them. And so I feel passionate that there is a way to do that. And I feel like, with the right knowledge and the right tools, you can actually give someone, and they can actually replicate that in the outdoors. And so that's what I want to do. Yeah. So
that's great. Thank you. I think it's cool. You have a great forum with your camps, and then youth, you're focused on youth. Like, I think there's just some awesome stuff that you can do there. So keep it up. We're rooting for you. If there's any way we can help you, let us know. Jason, I think, how do you foresee that we can continue as participants in the outdoor industry to continue to improve the diversity and the cause for the future?
Are you talking to this, Jason?
Oh man, this is gonna get tough all night, isn't it? Let's go with since you went before the other Jason, we're going Antin. Antin, you're coming up.
Fair enough, Marshall. Yeah, this is a really tricky one. especially in this time of like finding ways to connect with brands as well. There's, we are, you've officially found the ultimate white guys adventuring panel, right? So, it's kind of an interesting place for us. I don't think Max or Mr. Hardrath or myself are complaining in any way, right? We're incredibly privileged to be here, but like, as this is part of our profession, and how do we navigate this going forward? How can we, as I said before, the community is the most important part of the outdoors to me. And so how can I be a good member of that community? And, two major things come to mind. One is just mentorship, right? So coming up as a climber, I was lucky enough to find some mentors that were willing to, put me under their wing and guide me through the process. I personally am excited to do that. I know the organizations, the guiding outfitters I'm involved with, like Colorado Mountain School, is already putting mentoring programs in place for folks that might have more barriers than others to getting into the outdoors. And so mentorship is a big one. And the next one is listening, right? So like, as white guys adventuring, we only know so much about why these barriers exist. And so it's deferring to folks that maybe do have those answers. My wife's a teacher at inner city schools in Denver. So often I will defer to her. Hey, Jenny, what's the issue here? Why aren't your students going skiing? Why aren't they climbing? Why aren't they getting out? Like, what's the holdup? Some of those answers are obvious and others aren't. And so it's just deferring to folks who might have a better insight into the issues than I do. And the other one is partnering with organizations that already do these things well, right? We work with Big City Mountaineers out here in Colorado, and they work hard to connect with folks in the city who may not have the opportunity and access to the places that Jason and Max and myself do. So for me, it's just listening to find the answers and mentorship.
Yeah, I love that. I wrote all three down: mentorship, listening, and then partnering with organizations who can aid and are experts in that space too. So that's great. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. Now to the other Jason, Mr. Hardrath, as Antin refers to you, Mr. Hardrath.
I'll echo what those two guys said. One of the things I do that I feel is powerful is with my sixth graders, I take them on a sixth grade graduation hike up one of the local mountains. And it's cool to watch the transformative experience as like, they're kind of skeptical about it and they're not sure they're going to make it. And then they go through that, like, it hurts and it's hard and why are we out here? And then they get to that top quarter of the mountain, and suddenly the view and what they've accomplished starts to sink in, and then they make the summit, and you can just like see that they're proud of themselves. And creating those experiences for people where they can draw on that from a young age on, I feel, as far as reaching youth, that's super important. Because how much does it change a person when they drive by a mountain every day for the rest of their life and they're like, I've climbed that. I feel like that's super valuable for connecting with the outdoors and for building that respect and appreciation for the outdoors. And then I guess one different angle is a team I was on. I won't name names just for not stepping on anyone's toes, but a team I was on, we as a team, a bunch of white dude adventurers, were kind of disappointed with the weakness of our brand, our company's statement on all of the things going on around BLM and these issues in our country. And so we got together, and I actually authored a great portion. I felt horribly out of my element. Like, who am I to have any part in a conversation about this? But we could tell it wasn't quite enough. And so no one else was writing. So I was like, I'll write. And please, someone on the team, who's of a more diverse background, like, fill in the blanks and help me out here, but I'll like draft the body of the letter. And we wrote into the leaders of our company, and we were like, hey, we would like to see more. Like, we know you're doing more than what this statement says. And so we're not trying to start a fight. We're not trying to insult anybody, but please, like, release another statement that delineates more clearly the things you are doing and more things you can do. And so we as a team came together, and it did lead to a second release from the company, from the brand. And so if you have opportunities like that, where you're part of a group, you are an ambassador, you are on, and you're not proud of what your company is doing, get some people together, draft a letter. Worst case scenario, they decide to cut you from the team. Okay, well, maybe you didn't want to be a part of that company anyways. So, and oftentimes it just was oversight. And that was what it was in this case. It was just a massive oversight, and they didn't realize how weak what they released was. And when, you know, it was pointed out to their attention, they kind of like face palmed and were like, holy cow, we'll fix that. And so like you can do a lot of good if you just bother to band together with those who are of a similar mind and unite your voices and make something happen, even if you feel inadequate to speak into that realm. Because you know those around you will help fill in the gaps where you feel inadequate.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. Hey, thank you guys. I know that was a little bit off of our topic of infinity loops and beyond at this point, but I think it's an important one right now. And so thanks for taking the quick time to address it. And it's great to see the good things that you guys have in mind, and we'll continue trucking forward and together as one. So let's jump into running, guys. Running, FKTs, mountains, big missions. I see our chat is absolutely blowing up right now with better questions than I ever could have scripted. So I'm going to kick it off, but this is where the conversation between you guys, let's have some fun with it. It's been the season of FKTs, and I think in part, sadly enough, Max, for you, it's no official races, but you joined the FKT scene.
It's been fine.
Talk to us about what is going on right now. What is this FKT scene, and what is it here to stay? What's going on?
Wait, I don't know. Do you want to hear from me or the actual FKT king? The FKT king, or I can't even say it right. He's sitting right there. No, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where you don't have races, so all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm fit. What do I do? I want to have some, throw out some competition, and so I think one of the fun things with the FKT scene is just that. It's just a fun way to have some competition and not be too serious about it. Honestly, it's Hardrath is putting together these really creative segments. There's FKTs already out there all over the place. There's so many things that you can do with this that it just makes it kind of fun when, there's no races, there's nothing to do. So, all of us who are naturally competitive, we love training. We love being outdoors. We don't necessarily need to have the FKTs, nor is it always the right approach to a certain area, but sometimes it's just fun to do. And so you're like, let's see how fast I can run this segment, and just go for it. And, you compete against, other people when you're doing it and stuff. And honestly, like a ton of new friendships have blossomed over the summer because people are doing these things and they're reaching out to new folks and they're like, hey, I saw you did this segment, or hey, I saw you did this FKT. I'm going to go try it. Or do you want to hook up for one? It's like, Jason and I have just met this summer for that exact reason. I've met a couple of other people who I've done FKTs with this summer, stuff like that. So it's really, really fun.
And so again, I think along this lines, there's this I think Jason Antin, you mentioned this on one of our first calls together, was this concept of fast and slow in the mountains. I think this will pertain to you. Like, how do you, FKTs are long days. Inevitably, they're going to take a full day or more in some cases. How do you blend that balance and mindset of fast versus slow, when to pick it up, when to not? Like, talk us through kind of what that mindset takes and how you go about that.
Well, let's just get a couple things on the table. The only FKTs I've ever held or could hold are ones that either have significant, challenging, and obscure obstacles to actually deter the elite and super fit runners from attempting them. Really cold temps or some technical situation that's out there. But for me too, I'm not the fastest guy by any means. Never have been, but I do like the concept of just the mindset of relentless forward progress, right? Like chipping away, being efficient, keeping moving. I'm not a small guy, right? I mentioned I played football in college where the goal was to get as big as you possibly can. That's not exactly the ideal body type for a climber or a runner. And so although I'm not the same body composition or size that I was, in my college days, I'm still not small. And for me, it's kind of like, just imagine I'm just a coal powered train, and I just got to keep throwing food down the hatch and keep moving and keep stoke high. So for me, it's always been about just kind of grinding and keep moving forward.
Great. And I'm going to send this one. This one came actually through email from Elise. I'm sorry, I'm going to mispronounce your last name, Elise, if you're joining us. Levesque, I believe. Great question, and I think it pertains. I think all three of you guys can definitely have great perspective on this. She goes, so how does your relationship change, or does it, as you begin to venture down this path with the mountains, in regards to how does it change with the mountains in regards to when you start chasing FKTs and this concept of moving faster versus just getting out in the mountains to appreciate what is the mountains and the land that we live in? I'm going to send this one Hardrath's way, because you got, what, 72 right now?
74 as of a couple days ago.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, I've heard this brought up, like this idea that you're missing something if you go fast. A lot of last year when I did my initial efforts on Rainier with the Cascade Trifecta and with the Rainier Infinity Loop, a guy was like, "Oh, Rainier is special. Don't go fast on Rainier." And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. Like, it's a beautiful mountain, but I'm not just like tuning out when I move quicker. I'm still soaking it in, and I'm going to have a chance to watch the sun rise on Mount Rainier and do Mount Adams in the middle of the day and watch the sun set while I'm on Mount Hood. And that's all going to be one day of memories for me." And so to me, there's this, like, it creates a whole new appreciation and a whole new, or circumnavigating a mountain, summiting it and circumnavigating it in a given day, like seeing the mountain from every angle over the course of 24 hours, like having that burned into your memory where, like, as you access it, you're like, wait, can that even possibly be the same day? It does change the relationship, but I don't think it lessens the experience, because along with the experience with the mountain, you also face this experience with yourself. Just like anytime you go out and race, you have a very internal experience with, going into the pain cave. Oh, I feel good. Oh, wait, now I don't feel good. And now I got to dig myself out of the grave and get back to, finishing strong at the end. So it's like you get to pair these two experiences of an aesthetic experience with the mountains and this very internal, introspective experience with yourself. And to me, like, I've been deeply in love with that for a long time. To me, it almost feels like something is missing if I just go out casually into the mountains and there's no new objective or no element where I feel like I'm either pushing a skill or pushing my fitness. It almost feels like, wait, did I forget something? Did I not pack something in my bag? What's missing here?
Well, it's different, right? It's different. You can do both. You don't have to separate one from the other, or if you do separate one from the other, you can do it at a different time. I feel like a lot of people who say, "Oh, don't do that fast," it's like they'll never do it again. But it's like, well, we might be out there. One day we'll do it slow, one day we'll do it fast, and one day we'll do it sort of fast, and someday we'll do it with our friends, another day we'll ski it instead of run it. It's, there's room for all of this in this world. And it's like, you don't have to just do it one particular way. And once you do it one way, it's a lot of fun to try it a different way and do it a different way. So. Yeah,
I agree with Max. I think, I think the three of us have the privilege of having these outdoor spaces at our fingertips. And so it's like, man, you look at it that way, it's our training time. Do we want to be on a treadmill or do we want to be out here running on the trails? And I think the answer is obvious, but I think it really comes down to just understanding, right? Like, they're not really maybe understanding the people that might look at the moving quickly, right? Like, I think back to my first time running down the Grand Teton and someone yelled at me, "Hey, stop and smell the roses." And all I could think about was, man, do you know how many roses I've smelled today? Like, so many more than you're going to smell. But at the same time, it's just understanding, if you only have one moment in a year to be outside, which might be the case for the person who said that, just trying to understand where they're coming from. I don't think they can fully understand kind of the mindset or the life situation that Max or Jason or myself in. And on the flip side, I don't know where they're coming from, but it's real easy to, if you compare it to the treadmill comparison, or how many roses can you smell in a day, I think it's pretty obvious which one I'm going to choose.
Mm-hmm. I do think it's funny when, like, somebody, running down the trail, somebody tells you to slow down. It's like, well, okay, but we didn't tell you to speed up. I mean, just let us do what we're doing. Like, why do you need to feel like you have to impart like how you feel out here on us? And yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's so many different ways to enjoy what's out there and stuff. It's kind of like just let people be. I mean, one day I'll go slow, one day I'll go fast. Room for both.
Yeah. Do you guys? Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Jason.
Oh, I was just agreeing. Absolutely. And the other
Yeah.
one that happens out there is when people make that comparison statement of, oh, you're making us all look bad. It's like, no, you're out here. We're out here. Like, me moving a step or two faster than you makes we're on a giant hurling rock in outer space around a nuclear reactor. Like, me walking a few steps faster than you up this mountain makes no difference to our experiences. It's like, if you're having an amazing experience in the mountains, me moving faster than you makes no difference in the big scheme of things. Just have your experience, I'll have my experience, and maybe on a different day, a different phase in our life, we'll have the opposite experiences. I'll be the slow one and you'll be going fast. I don't know. Just enjoy it. It's about your own experience out there.
Yeah. It's a playground, right?
It's a playground.
It's everybody's playground, and to each their own, and find your joy, and make sure it puts a darn big smile on your face, right?
Yep.
So we see a bunch of questions kind of coming through the chat box, and a lot of them are kind of educational, kind of providing kind of like your due diligence on prepping for. First one is coming from Pete. Can you go through some of like your due diligence that you guys each do individually when researching, planning an outdoor adventure to this extreme kind of grandiose level that you guys are embarking on?
Yeah, we're going to ask you that first, Hardrath.
Shoot. So, I mean, I probably have the worst planning of these two guys, I would guess. I've got a notebook that has about 148 now, 148 semi-planned where I've run the numbers and the numbers say, oh, you climb, vertical ascension rate, just barely fast enough. Your running rate when you're fatigued, just barely fast enough. So it's like, I kind of run the numbers and I've got these rough things and it's like, this is the type of terrain I'll face. These are the bailouts. And if the numbers say it's possible and the weather works out, I just kind of go. I just have my base kit and my skill set. And I mean, I am speaking from a place of, I guess, the privilege of 16 years of ultra endurance background, 6 years of mountaineering experience. I mean, I'm wearing my guiding shirt today. I'm a professional guide. So it's like, I realize I'm speaking from a place of a lot of background and a lot of experience where I kind of have this confidence that I've run into so many problems as I've gone on all these adventures and training runs in the past. And I've thrown myself in so many difficult situations that I kind of just have this belief that it's like, okay, these are the things I will face. And even worst case scenario, if I face this, this, and this, I can solve those problems and suffer my way out for X number of miles. And so worst case scenario, I have, a 40-mile really terrible walk. So yeah, I guess I kind of have this spirit about it that it's like, if I run the numbers, if I do the initial planning and there's that strong gut feeling of yes, go for it, then I go for it. But I am drawing on a long background of skill sets and endurance there.
Yeah. And so Jason Antin, I'm gonna come back at you with this one because I think you've just in your professional guiding career now, and Hardrath, you do the same too, but I think you have a unique perspective here as well. How would your due diligence in going into these big missions, like what all entails for you that makes you feel gung-ho, let's do this?
Yeah, I am definitely a planner. I like spreadsheets. I have many of them. Not until recently did I start weighing things out, but I did just get back from a run on the Grand Traverse circuit in the Tetons and realized my pack was way too heavy. So yeah, I just busted out the scale to see where things are at. But I'd much rather like to plan things out ahead of time, down to not so much the ounces or grams, but really plan out the food, the layers, everything, pre-upload GPX tracks, make sure all my partners have them. I definitely do like to plan because I know once you hit the ground, whether it's in your backyard or you've traveled a far ways to get there, a lot of hurdles and a lot of obstacles can show up. And it's nice for me, I like to have things kind of set aside ahead of time. I also like, I've taken the time to write out these gear lists. And so some of them are published on Rock and Ice. And I think that's pretty cool because I find them to be relatable. I'm not an elite level endurance athlete. A lot of my gear lists are kind of middle of the road. Like I'll bring a couple extra cams that some people probably wouldn't bring for some of these real fast efforts. And so hopefully people find those gear lists helpful. But I do like to take the time and map things out and make pretty detailed spreadsheets before I go on a big mission.
Mm-hmm. And Max, for you, like, I mean,
no,
trail
we'll
running.
We'll refer this back over to Antin because he does so much more planning than I do. I'm like, let's see. It's going to take me an hour to get up that mountain. Yeah, let's go for it. And I'm not saying this to like, because they're long efforts because I'm going fast. It's because all of mine are so short that I don't have much planning. I just don't do like the multi-day trips, the multi-day efforts, the technical efforts. Mine are all like, all the things that I've really done have been like shorter distance efforts that really don't take that long, that don't take a whole lot of planning, that I don't have to think about all that much. Just because that's where I work and that's the space I work in, rather than doing those multi-day stuff that are really, really long, that take a lot of planning and stuff. So that's the whole reason, not because I'm going faster, but.
That's great. Is there ever a point for you guys, like when it just, you can overplan and you just got to be flexible out there? I mean, is there a balance in that, or can you never plan too much with kind of these bigger missions that you guys are tackling?
I know for me, I have this, my wife and I went on our honeymoon to Greenland, right? And our goal was to climb new routes out there. And I'd done everything I could to research ahead of time, talk to folks who had been there. But I definitely, this is, about 5 years ago, and I was much more in the mindset of just go with the flow. And I was really depending on this folder that I knew was at the Chamber of Commerce in this tiny village of Nanortalik. And I finally get to this Chamber of Commerce, and this gentleman from Norway, his name's Niels, he's the head of the Chamber of Commerce for the village of Nanortalik, hands me this folder, and it's all in languages I couldn't decipher or read, and I was really depending on this one piece of data. And that moment kind of scarred me, because we're scrambling, we're about to go into the fjord in a few hours, and I just felt like I kind of blew it as far as planning. We still had a phenomenal trip, but we're much more kind of handling obstacles as they came at us, versus I think a little extra planning could have gone a long way on that expedition.
Great. I think Zan has a couple questions coming your way on regards to Zan. You want to take it from here?
Yeah. Kind of to touch on the planning, but to go into like the nutritional aspect. On some of your shorter runs, obviously, Max, you're not probably bringing much as far as food or electrolytes or stuff. But on those longer outings, like how do you plan for that nutrition, and how do you how do you know what you need? And have you ever ran into a situation where you didn't have or didn't consume what your body needed?
Anyone in particular?
Just any of you. I guess you could start since you're the one unmuted.
Oh, all right. Because mine are mostly shorter. It's usually taking in, just calories as I need them. I'm taking along like goos, waffles, some solid food in terms of bars and stuff like that, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, things like that. It's, if it's, I don't know, I really like on those longer efforts where you're moving a little bit slower in the mountains, I like having solid food. I don't prescribe to like any kind of like regimented like time where I'm on a schedule for my nutrition or anything. I'll kind of take it in as I need on those kinds of things. I approach like a trip in the mountains like that a lot different than I do a race. Where a race, I'm every 20 minutes I'm taking a goo. On the hours I'm taking some solid food in. It's much more like scheduled out and regimented for me. Whereas in a mountain adventure, I'm much more laid back in that, and I'm kind of out there to enjoy it a little bit more. And so I kind of take it as it comes, and I'm a lot more flexible, and I eat when I need to, take some more solid food along, things that I want to try. or that maybe I haven't tried before, but look good to me, stuff like that. So it's much more free flowing for me, and just kind of take it as it goes.
Yeah, have you ever ran into a situation where you didn't consume enough, and what
Oh yeah,
happens
I mean
when that happens?
all the time. I mean, you're out there and you're like walking along or running along, and you just bonk. It's like what's like, if you've been out there enough, what's going on with your body and stuff. And sometimes you can kind of head that off, and you kind of are like, yeah, I kind of expect this. It's coming. Oh, there it is. I feel terrible for like 10 minutes. Then you get something in, and then you're off again. It's just one of those things I think the learning curve is, it's there, but it's pretty quick. I mean, you can pick up on like what you need as far as your nutrition and stuff when you're out there, and it's just a learning thing. But the more you're out there, the more the experience that you have, the faster you figure that out.
Yeah, it really only takes making that mistake once.
Yeah. Well, I've made it a few more times than just once. I make it all the time, but yeah, you know what to do and how to fix it when it does happen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Antin?
I agree with Max. The harder the effort, the higher the intensity, more simple sugars. I think I've eaten nothing but Cliff Shop blocks for 42 hours straight once, kind of moving at a harder pace. But the older I get, just like Max said, it's real food. A little bit slower tempo, maybe some more technical stuff. I'm definitely going for, a nice alpine arugula hummus wrap seems to be my go-to these days. My buddy Eric Sanders, he has a pretty strong background in adventure racing, and he won't stop moving. And I see him in front of me, like doing stuff like he's digging into his running vest, and he just has the most elaborate food. I think he's like salmon and crackers, and he's like lightly jogging while having pretty legit meals. But yeah, the older I get and the slower the tempo, the more real the food seems to be these days.
What about you, Hardrath?
I guess I tend to split it. I think I have like an idea of a structure, but then I do a lot of intuitive nutrition as I'm out there. So I know how many calories I should be taking in within a given range. And then I kind of play within that range based on how I'm feeling. So it might be anywhere from 100 to 200 calories, 100 to 300 calories an hour of whatever I'm taking in. Some of that might not be dead on per hour. Same with hydration. I think some of my efforts, I've gone as low as like 100 milliliters per hour during like cold conditions, all the way up to like 700 milliliters an hour in hotter conditions. Just kind of listening to the body, paying attention there. I do a lot of liquid tailwind type nutrition to save weight and volume, since I like to go light and fast. And then I split my food two ways. I have kind of the practical nutrition where I know I'm meeting my electrolytes and my caloric needs, but then I'll do sort of psychological nutrition where it's like, oh, this is something I'll be looking forward to eating at such and such time. So if I hit a low point, like I'm gonna look forward to this Snickers bar or this fancy salami that I got, or whatever happens to sound good. When I'm doing self-supported efforts, so like on the Rainier Infinity Loop, if I'm gonna have like a station that I'm gonna run by, oftentimes I'll have heavier, saltier, protein, fat-rich foods hanging out there. And then when I'm out moving, it's all liquid and sugars. So that way, as I slow my body down, slowing the metabolism down, able to process those heavier foods for the little bit of time while I'm transitioning. So I'll take those in while I'm there. So yeah, I'd say my biggest, maybe unique thing is thinking about food in terms of what is a psychological benefit versus what's just practical science of this is the nutrition I need. And I found that to be really useful for me on these big efforts as a tool.
Yeah, I like that, the psychological versus the physical needs. I think that's pretty important, especially on some of the long ones that you do. I know we're gonna have to end here pretty soon. Max is gonna have to go do one of his camps. But I also wanted to ask, especially you, Hardrath, and Antin, about fatigue and sleep deprivation on some of these efforts, and how you mitigate the risks that are involved in some of these, like your Rainier Infinity Loop, when in that fatigue state.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. I think for me, I've found that it's less noticeable the less structured the experience. So for example, something like the Rainier Infinity Loop, where you are on a real mountain, in the backcountry, in Jason Hardrath's situation by himself, or, a single push of a big alpine route like the Casine Ridge, like you can't afford to make mistakes, and you need to be completely present. The opposite of that experience was I did the Tahoe 200 2 summers ago, and I could not keep myself awake. And I think it's because it's so structured. There's trail markers everywhere. There's aid stations. There's runners everywhere. And you just subconsciously let your guard down. And it was much harder for me to stay focused and stay present in a race environment versus when you are out there and you really need to be focused. And so I would say in the Rainier Infinity Loop, I really didn't notice it. Or in Denali, I just don't notice it like I do in a structured race environment. So it's like night and day.
Yeah, I'll jump in right on the back of that. I think our brains can totally tell the difference. We know when we're in I'm dialed out, I'm relying on myself right now, versus if I fell asleep on the side of the trail here, nothing bad would happen. Our brains know that, they can figure that out. And so, at that deep subconscious level, it's that switch flips off or flips on. Because I had the same experience. When I was on the mountain portion of the Rainier Infinity Loop, it was there was no fatigue. There was no struggle focusing. It was just dialed, moving, in touch with my body, in touch with my movements, double checking my skills. And then what I remember when I got off the mountain portion, I was back on the trail. And going into the second night, it was not in danger anymore. And now it was oh, wait, no, where's this focus? And I remember really struggling that second night, just because, my mind kind of knew it's you could lay down right there or right there or right there. And just kind of pushing through that and keeping moving was way more of a challenge than being on the mountain. And the same with these other infinity loops that I've done. Is when you're in the dangerous terrain, it's your brain knows, it's okay, stay dialed. You can't stop here. No stopping here. Versus once you step back to that safety net, it's easier for your brain to go, okay, we can check out.
Yeah. When you're solo, it's way more challenging because that level of focus needs to be, a few volumes higher. If I'm with a group of buddies, I know when I did the Rainier Infinity Loop with Eric Sanders, who did the whole thing, and Sam for a portion of it, we had the hurt locker concept. And if anyone was bonking or really dragging, they had to go in between the two of us. And the only way you get out of the hurt locker is to pass the guy in front of you, which kind of showed you that you snapped out of it. You had a couple salt pills, a caffeine, or some food. It's the only way to get out of the hurt locker. At least in a team of 3, it works.
I like that idea.
like that.
That's kind of cool.
I like that.
I need to start doing some more stuff where I have some sleep deprivation.
Max, in regards to you, I mean, you're much shorter, not these long full days, but you hit walls in your races. How do you manage through that from your perspective as a?
Hey, I did an infinity loop.
You did. That's true.
You did just for this episode.
That's true.
How do those walls? I mean, definitely those are there in racing for sure. And a lot of times it's psychological. A lot of times for me, it comes from that nutrition side of things. A lot of people will ask how do you ever make it through an ultra race? I can only run up to 20 miles at a time. And it's no, your body and your legs, they can do it. It's just if you take care of yourself and are on top of everything that you need, you'll make it. And so a lot of times it's not the physical, it's not the, your muscles, your legs that are really preventing you from getting across, doing a 50 miler or 100 miler. It's your knowledge, it's your experience doing that. And as long as you can keep your body going with what it needs, which is usually going to be nutrition, then you can make it. And so that's one of those things of as you get into that ultra running world, or at least as I've gotten into it and stuff over the past 10 years, it's the learning curve is pretty steep, and it's pretty hard, and it'll take me a couple of years to figure out a distance. And so the first time I started running 50Ks, it took me 3 or 4 years to really dial that distance down and really figure it out. And it was all, for me, it was all nutrition. It wasn't really any training. It was a little bit of training, obviously, but not a ton. And then same with 50 miles. It took a long time to kind of dial that in and really kind of figure out my nutrition for that. And I still haven't figured out 100 miles. I can't do it. Yeah, sure, I can get through 100 miles, but not to the level of where I feel like, okay, I can say like that was a successful 100 miles. I just haven't gotten there yet. So it's going to take, years to do that. And it's just learning about your body and learning and figuring those things out of how to do it, and how to get your body through it. So.
Yeah, just to kind of leave some final comments on nutrition. For me, it really comes down to discipline. There's a lot of things you can't control in these mountain adventures or in races. But if you kind of just stick to fueling your body well, you're just taking one last component of disaster off the table. For me, at an average level, it's like Jason said. I think he said 100 to 300 calories. I shoot for like 200 every hour. I drink in between every aid station, at every aid station. No ifs, ands, or buts. Like if my body's feeling good, you can't skip it. If my body's feeling crappy, you just don't skip it. And so for a lot of folks starting out, just fuel appropriately and be disciplined about it. I think anyone who's run ultras for a while has probably worked in an aid station. And it's just mind blowing to see the spectrum of enthusiasm and body awareness when they roll into like aid station 20. So people are cheery and rolling through, and others look like they've just run for 3 days straight. And I think a lot of that is just, staying on top of food and fueling.
That's great. Well, hey guys, I got two kind of final questions, and we got to get Max off to go train some local folks there in Bend. The first is probably the only time that in a long while, because you're all going to be off in the mountains somewhere, that you're going to have each other on one screen, the opportunity to ask each other anything on the plate right now that you want to know from the other two guys. Is there anything that you're just eager to banter with? We can start there if that makes it easier.
Well, actually, Marshall, so there's a question up there from Benjamin Coffin about how old each of us was when we summited our first true proper mountain, and what mountain was it? And I think we should answer that one. Because it gives us back like a little bit of background and stuff. And I think Ben was on here. He said he was one of those youth that you were hoping was on the call. So we should probably answer that one.
Yeah.
I guess I'm talking, so I'll go first. So mine was actually the one that I just did with Hardrath, which was Mount Thielsen in Southern Oregon. And that was the first mountain I ever did. I did it, I think it was my senior year in high school, went up there with two buddies. We're like, we're going to go climb Thielsen. And we went up there and we sort of climbed Thielsen. We got up and we're like, we don't know what we're doing. We tried to go up the head wall, which is where you're not supposed to go, but that's where Hardrath actually climbs straight up the mountain. And I was like, yeah, I'm not ever going to do that. And I tried that when I was in high school and that didn't work out. So then we figured out the right route and we got up there. But, I think it's worth noting. It's like, that was in high school, but I didn't climb another mountain for probably another 10 years after that. And I didn't develop any of those skills until later in life. And stuff. And it's, it's not about how young you were when you started climbing mountains. It's, how you tackle them and what your passion is there. And then what you do to develop that and stuff. And that'll come back into my question in a little bit when I ask these other two guys something that I don't know yet.
That's great. Benjamin just jumped on saying that Thielsen was his first too. That's awesome.
Sweet. Nice.
That's awesome. Hardrath, how about you? First mountain.
First proper mountain. It was probably, I guess, McLaughlin and Thielsen both happened like back to back right near each other. I had a big car accident back in 2015. I was into Ironman and triathlon prior to that. So I refer to that as my former life. I was ejected from the vehicle, went from being able to run to like hardly being able to walk. Biking 140 miles and having it feel easy to not being able to get my own drink of water. It was a rough phase of life. But one of the things that happened is since I couldn't run anymore because my knee wouldn't flex enough to really get an efficient, I just started walking up and down hills, and hills led to mountains. And those were the two mountains closest to me. So it went McLaughlin, and then it went Thielsen, and then it went Shasta. And then from there, it was kind of like I was locked in, and I just started climbing west. And that was, 2015 would have been my first proper mountain experiences. And then just went crazy. I think I have over 100 different summit experiences around the Pacific Northwest and the Sierras now. Yeah.
No turning back for you. That's awesome. Jason Antin.
Yeah, I mean, I think that question actually brings up some great points about the concept of FKTs, the mountains, endurance, and it's all about kind of redefining normal, right? Like, what's normal for you? What's the experience like? My Facebook banner is me finishing my first 100-mile race, and I remember that feeling of, it was pretty overwhelming. It was a really powerful experience, and I leave it up there. Even Facebook reminds me every 3 weeks to update my banner. But that thing's almost 10 years old now, and I think Max and Jason and myself all worked in some way to educate people, whether it's through Max's camps, Jason as a teacher, as a guide, me with my own things. It's like, it's important for us to remember what it's like to be a beginner so we can help people in that progression. And so bringing it back to your actual question, for me, it was Cannon Mountain in the winter in New Hampshire. And it's a pretty small hill, no offense to any New Englanders listening. It is one of the 4,000 footers, but yeah, I was scared. It was cold. I got sweaty. It got colder, and I got pretty scared. And, I remember that experience because it really wasn't a big deal. Bring it back to here. It was just like a little wind chill. All three of us, Jason, Max, it's just like a little, you just keep running, you warm back up and you're good. But I thought I was going to die for about 15 minutes. And so for me, even though Cannon Mountain, New Hampshire isn't the biggest mountain, it was my first well, I'm out there right now, or I feel out there. And so I remember that experience because it kind of helps me bring it back as an outdoor educator into what it's like to go through this progression of kind of putting yourself out there in the mountains.
That is awesome. Well, hey guys, I appreciate it big time. I'm going to pull up back on screen here. Just for those that tuned in tonight, thanks for joining us. It's awesome to get such a cool, aspiring panel, and Max and Jason. I think at the roots of this in the lab is community, and with not having the clearest abilities to gather anymore, it's we hope that at least digitally for now we can connect people. So guys, I've kind of listed your Instagram handles here for those that tune in. I urge you to reach out to each of these guys if you have other questions. We just barely scraped the surface on the whole list and of what we could have talked about tonight, but appreciate it big time. Is there any final comments from you guys in regards to, if just take myself, for example, I'm not an ultra marathoner. I'm just now breaking the cusp of big mountain missions and learning the technical skills. Is there any recommendations to a rookie like myself that you would say, hey, Marsh, you gotta get into this now, earlier rather than later?
No, I mean, I don't know. Not coming from me. I'm not going to tell you to get into it now. It's 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 up to you. It's like one of those things. It's like you got to follow what you want to do and what sounds exciting to you at the time. I've never. I wouldn't want to tell anybody, oh, you got to do this now or it's never going to happen. It's like, we get into it at all different ages because we find that reason and our own reason to get into it. And it's like one of the things I wanted to ask these two guys, it's like, one thing that I still want to know about is like technical mountaineering. It's like, I don't have those skills. I need to develop those skills and I want to. It's just, and I'm 40 now and I haven't done that yet, but I will one of these days. And that's something that,
Let's get out, Max.
What?
Let's get out there, Max.
I know, let's do it. Like, I need to develop this stuff and I'm getting old, but it's not like I feel like I'm past that prime of like, I can't do that anymore because I'm not 25. It's like, yeah, I'm 40. Now I can learn it. It's like, I've done all this other stuff and I have these other experiences. And now it's time to start learning the technical mountaineering side of things. And so now it's time. It's like, you come into it on your own pace. And so I think that's how you have to approach this kind of stuff. It's like, never feel like you've missed it. It hasn't passed you by. Nothing ever passes you by. You can always do it. So
That's awesome. It's great advice, Max. I appreciate it. Hardrath and Antin, anything from the Infinity Loop guys?
And I think it all starts with just there's the saying in like getting an expedition to happen. It's like, buy the plane ticket, right? It's the same thing with any sort of adventure that you think is interesting to you or will challenge you, and it's just put it on the calendar. I think all of my favorite memorable mountain missions start with an email, and I love looking back at those emails. It usually goes out to like 3 to 5 people, and it's like, hey, here's the plan, you know, XYZ, and then you stick to it. And before you know it, you've got another incredible life-changing memory in the books.
Yeah, I got one of those. Well, my first big adventure was a bike ride across the United States that I planned myself with another guy from my college to raise some money for a child center in Guatemala. And we just decided to do it ourselves because so much of the money from like the group rides you pay for, like, went to expenses that weren't related to the cause. So we're like, we'll just eat beans on tortillas and we'll sleep in ditches and we'll ride across the country. And we're just like hardcore about it. And I remember like wrestling over the decision to do it initially. Like, is this the right thing to do? Am I really ready for this? All these different questions. And eventually I got one of those road IDs because, you know, my mom wanted me to be popular at the time. And you're left with one line. Like, you get all your medical information in there, and there's always one extra line that you don't need for anything else. And I was like, well, what do I want to put on that? And the thing that stuck out to me is, in life, you just have to pick a direction and go. And so I think when you want to do an adventure, even if you just have an idea of something you want more of in your life, and it's like a blurry target that you're aiming for, just move toward anything that's in that direction. You don't have to be able to see the bullseye to pull the trigger. Like, just move toward that blurry target. And then, you know, like the discipline that Antin talks about, just set bright lines as in rules for yourself that you're going to follow that keep you moving toward that goal. And as you progress toward it, as you do more and more of these experiences, you're going to learn more and more about what you love. And pretty soon you're going to be like, oh, I definitely want to go do a sea to summit on this mountain. And I want to go circumnavigate this mountain. And you're just going to find these things that you fall in love with, these concepts or these structures or these ways of adventuring. And you don't know that until you get close enough to see it. So you just have to start. You just pick a direction and go.
I love that. I think that goes right with what you said earlier about you're constantly training for something that you can't see or that you're not even aware that it exists there. And yeah, it's just get out and do it. And, you know, it'll take you somewhere if you put your energy into it.
I think there's 3 things that I took down. Sorry, no more questions, guys. But there's 3 things that I jotted down. It never passes you by, Max. I jotted that one down. Never passes you by. I think pick a direction and go, Hardrath. Like, jotted that one down. And then Antin, buy the plane ticket. I think all of you guys took that. I think, again, it circles back to the start of this, the leap of faith to, like, get out there and go for it. And I think that's just the nature of what you guys do and what you guys have been able to curate as far as adventure. And it's amazing. So I think with that, I just want to say thanks, guys. It's on behalf of the Adventure Mates and the Mountain Shop and this community in the lab. You guys are a true inspiration. It's a pleasure to get to spend an hour and 10 minutes with you to chat about adventure. It's good luck on the next ones, and we'll get the opportunity to hopefully chat and catch up soon again here in the lab, and those that tune in can ask some more additional questions. But
thanks for having us.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Yeah, we could talk with you forever.
that brings us to a close. So, guys, the stoke is real. Max, have a great camp tonight, and the rest of you, Hardrath and Antin. We'll look forward to following you guys from afar, and adventure is always better together.